let's get to Bill Taylor's testimony. Of course, this was a closed-door hearing that was on Tuesday. We don't have all the details to his testimony, but we do have his opening statement, which was made public. So, I believe that is the backdrop to all of this Republican angst, all of this Republican drama that's going on, the busting down the door and the impromptu press conference.
Why you say that though? Why you say that like his testimony kind of prompted this? Why do you say that?
I say that because as you will hear, we're gonna because I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna break down a lot of the relevant parts to his opening statement. I try not to be dramatic. I try not to just like hype things up for no good reason. I just don't. I just don't really do that. When I say that his testimony was damning, when I say that it was maybe the crux, maybe ultimately going to be the crux of Trump's removal from office.
It read like the beginning of like a crime novel. Like it reads like that. It does read like that. He's very descriptive.
It is devastating. I was in shock while I was reading it because look, a lot of the information that he gave, it was stuff that we were already pondering. We were already kind of like, well, this probably happened and this probably happened. But of course, you don't have the details to actually make that statement.
You're just kind of like speculating.
You're just speculating.
Just based on like putting pieces together and whatnot.
But by now having an account experience that details exactly what was going on, whoo! All right. So let's get through. Let's get through this. All right. So as I said before, Marie Yovanovitch, she was the ambassador to Ukraine, but then she was recalled. So the position was offered to William Taylor, who goes by Bill Taylor, a diplomat. He had been the ambassador to Ukraine about 10 years ago. That ended in 2009. So he was given, he was being offered this job. And he was kind of, I guess, weighing if he should take it or not. And he spoke with his wife. His wife didn't want him to take it.
Listen to the wife.
Didn't want him to take it. But he also spoke with Republican, some senior Republican official who advised him to take it, saying something like, if your country asks you to do something, you should probably do it if you think you can be effective. So that's when I guess he made a decision to take the position. But here's his account in his own words of, I guess, what he was worried about, what he was considering in making this decision. I worried about what I had heard concerning the role of Rudolph Giuliani, who had made several high-profile statements about Ukraine and U.S. policy toward the country. So, during my meeting with Secretary Pompeo on May 28th, I made clear to him and others present that if U.S. policy toward Ukraine changed, he would not want me posted there and I could not stay. He assured me that the policy of strong support for Ukraine would continue and that he would support me in defending that policy. So for him, I believe he made the case several times that Ukraine is special to him. He definitely is interested in the strong relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine.
So that's like his baby.
Yeah. So he again, that's his interest. And so if he got the feeling that something else was going on and U.S. policy towards Ukraine shifted or changed in any way, then he was going to be very uncomfortable and he would not want to be in that role anymore.
Because he was invested in helping Ukraine move forward after Russia invaded Crimea.
Yes. All right.
And helping the Ukrainian government weed out some of the corruption that was there that ended up causing that, which was kind of promoted and carried out by the former president.
Right.
What was
the ousted president.
The ousted president. He got ousted for treason, working on behalf of the Russian government.
All right. So Taylor then testified that upon arriving in Ukraine, he quickly noticed, quote, 2 channels of U.S. policy-making implementation, one regular and one highly irregular, end quote. He said that he was clearly in the regular channel, but also in the irregular channel to the extent that the players in that channel included him in certain conversations. So then he talks about this irregular channel. He says, although this irregular channel was well connected in Washington, it operated mostly outside of official State Department channels. This irregular channel began when Ambassador Volker, who was Ambassador Kurt Volker, who was the special envoy to Ukraine, Ambassador Gordon Sondland, the ambassador to the EU, Secretary Rick Perry, who is now the former Secretary of Energy, and Senator Ron Johnson briefed President Trump on May 23rd upon their return from President Zelensky's inauguration. The delegation returned to Washington enthusiastic about the new Ukrainian president and urged President Trump to meet with him early on to cement the U.S.-Ukraine relationship. But from what I understood, President Trump did not share their enthusiasm for a meeting with Mr. Zelensky. So we talked about this before, especially we talked about this with Gordon Sondland's testimony that was just recently. That he just testified recently. I think it was last week, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he did talk about that meeting at the White House with President Trump and how they were conveying to him that, yes, you need to have a phone call with the new president, President Zelensky, and you need to invite him to the White House because we want to build this strong relationship with Ukraine. But President Trump, for some reason, was not feeling their request. He was not feeling that he needed to, partake in this early on, meeting with President Zelensky. His idea was that he was not sold that corruption was where it needed to be. Like they hadn't rooted out corruption in Ukraine to a meaningful effect. But they tried to explain to him that, yes, Ukraine has taken very major steps to rid the corruption from the country. Not only did they convey that message to him, but the Pentagon had certified that the Ukraine had taken major steps to rid the country of its corruption problem. So there was no reason, it didn't seem like there was any legitimate reason for President Trump to feel like, I'm not so sure about this right now. I'm just not feeling it.
And if that was the goal, Bill Taylor is the perfect person to coordinate on that issue, seeing as he was involved with Ukraine and helping Ukraine try to, expedite corruption out of the government.
Yes.
Based on what actually happened there.
Yeah.
So if that was the case, Bill Taylor was the perfect person to organize with in doing that. Mm-hmm. And if Donald Trump would have did that and not used the back channel, it would have looked like something that was legit.
Yeah. So,
and informed the State Department as well.
All right, so let's keep going, okay? So we're going to go to July now. So in mid-July, Ambassador Taylor said, quote, "It was becoming clear to me that the meeting President Zelensky wanted was conditioned on the investigations of Burisma and alleged Ukrainian interference in the 2016 U.S. elections. So he said it was also clear that this condition was driven by the irregular policy channel I had come to understand was guided by Mr. Giuliani," end quote. So then on July 18th, Taylor said that he heard a staff person from the Office of Management and Budget say that there was a hold on security assistance to Ukraine. She couldn't say why, but she also said that her boss instructed her not to approve any additional spending of security assistance for Ukraine until further notice. And so Ambassador Taylor was shocked, and he said that other people were in the room that were shocked as well. They're like holding their mouth wide open, couldn't understand why this drastic change in U.S. policy toward Ukraine was taking place. There were just no answers. And again, we have talked about this before. We talked about how though that nearly $400 million in aid to Ukraine was withheld. And it was the White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, that ordered it at the request of Donald Trump, of course. But he gave that information to the State Department and the Pentagon, and he said it was because of some counteragency issue. So the Pentagon, the State Department, it seemed like nobody knew. Bill Taylor didn't know. It seemed like nobody knew, like, what legitimate purpose did Trump and Mick Mulvaney have for putting a hold on that aid.
Wouldn't he need help from the Pentagon or the State Department to help Ukraine in regard to corruption? Wouldn't he need their help?
Yeah.
Like, in general, most aid packages, right, come with terms and conditions.
Yeah, they do.
So withholding aid by itself is actually not a bad thing, especially if the reason is actually legitimate.
If it's legitimate.
If it's legitimate, and there's actually nothing wrong with that.
But you would have to cite a legitimate purpose. And
Why they
I
have a
would
problem-
think
why
that
they
the
have a-
government, our government, would know what that legitimate purpose was.
So why would Trump and I guess those who he assigned to create the back channel and talk through that back channel, why wouldn't they inform the State Department if there was legitimate cause? I mean, corruption in Ukraine, and we're giving money to them. You're damn right, and I'm pretty sure members of like important and high up members in the State Department would be like, yeah, cool. If you see something, that's what's up.
Yeah.
We did this before.
It wouldn't be a secret.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a secret because they've done this before.
Yeah.
But they did it with the coordination of other countries in the International Monetary Fund. So it actually wouldn't be a big deal if there was actually corruption still going on in a country we were designated to give aid to. So it actually wouldn't have been a big deal if Trump went about it the right way. But he's not going about it the right way for a reason.
And not only would other countries know what's going on and why, our agencies here in the United States of America would know what's going on as well. But it seemed like nobody knew. So, of course, this concerned and alarmed Ambassador Taylor because, as we said at the beginning, he is interested in a very strong relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine. And also in the backdrop of all of this is the ongoing conflict that Ukraine has with Russia. So he knows that that security aid needs to go to Ukraine so that they can protect themselves, so they can do different things to, I guess, fight that battle with Russia. So all of this is a large concern of Bill Taylor. So from then until September, there was a major effort to get this aid released. And so it wasn't just an effort that was engaged upon just with Bill Taylor, but the Department of Defense, the CIA, the State Department, the secretaries of all these departments, also the National Security Advisor, all of them wanted a meeting with President Trump to convince him that this aid needs to be released and routed to Ukraine as soon as possible. But you know how things go, especially when you're trying to get a meeting with the president. I don't know if it was delayed, but it was held up. They couldn't get a meeting with them just soon, right away. So this thing lasted until September. And like I said, Bill Taylor is just twisting in the wind, not knowing exactly what's going on. All right, so then we get to August, okay? All right, so this is from his opening statement again. On August 16th, I exchanged text messages with Ambassador Volker, in which I learned that Mr. Yermak, who is a Ukrainian official, his name is Andriy Yermak, which I learned that Mr. Yermak had asked that the United States submit an official request for an investigation into Burisma's alleged violations of Ukrainian law, if that is what the United States desired. A formal U.S. request to the Ukrainians to conduct an investigation based on violations of their own law struck me as improper, and I recommended to Ambassador Volker that we stay clear. Now understand what's going on there. There's a request coming from a Ukrainian official to the United States saying, hey, United States, if you want us to, look into something officially, some violation of our law, make an official request. They're their own sovereign country. How would it look for any country to get into the business of another country, like a violation that took place? How would it look if another country, say, I don't know, England, let's say Germany, France, anywhere, was like, you know what? United States, you have a problem with police brutality.
No, you have a problem with like trafficking, so we need you to specifically start an investigation in R. Kelly.
Yeah, but no, it could be but it could be anything. But I mean, if they said that, hey, these officers are running rampant and they're not being held accountable, we think that's a violation of your law
and human rights violation.
Human rights violation. So you need to actually hold them accountable. This is a formal request. The United States would tell them to get lost, kick rocks, because we're our own sovereign country. So how would it look for the United States to make a formal request to another country that, hey, you got stuff going on in there, you should probably not violate your own laws. You shouldn't be okay with violating your own laws.
But
they could maybe say it to him. Hey, hey, how can we be of assistance to you? If you need any of our assistance to kind of like root out corruption, cool. We're there. We got your back. But to make an official request of another country to just, I guess, abide by their own laws, that's terribly inappropriate.
Yeah, the request itself is weird.
And you know who else probably thought it was weird? The Ukrainians. That's why they probably asked for an official request. They're like, what do we need to do? What are you talking about?
Think about that, though. If the Ukrainians are like, huh? So the Ukrainians are like, huh? A Ukrainian official is like, huh? What's going on? Like, you need to do this the right way. That's a request to go about it the right way. So,
Yeah.
So if this is truly about seeing that the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian government is served, why is the Ukrainian government saying, huh? Like, why aren't you going about this the right way if this is really on the up and up? That's the question you should ask.
There was never any official request either by the United States.
That seems odd.
There was never any.
So if there's no official request, then what do you think this is really about? Do you really think that
Something unofficial.
Do you really think Trump cared if an actual investigation was opened? Refresh it. But yeah, do you really think that that's the case?
Yeah. So, all right. So now we're going to get to September, okay? So on September 1st, this was the same day that Vice President Mike Pence met with President Zelensky in Warsaw, Poland. So Taylor said that he finally gained some clarity. So Taylor spoke with National Security Council aide Tim Morrison, who told him that Ambassador Sondland admitted to Ukrainian official Andriy Yermak, who we just talked about, quote, that the security assistance money would not come until President Zelensky committed to pursue the Burisma investigation, end quote. Now, to be clear, this was a moment of clarity for Ambassador Taylor, because up until this point, he knew that something fishy was going on, like something inappropriate was going on. He talked about those two channels, the regular one and the irregular one.
Yeah.
But up until this point, Taylor believed that the meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky was the thing that was being on hold, or that was being held up due to the fact that the investigations were not announced yet. He did not think that the withholding of the security aid was tied to that request as well. But this conversation with Morrison, the National Security Council aide, this cleared things up for him. So after that, he immediately was very concerned. Again, the guy that is interested in a strong relationship with Ukraine, he's very concerned. So who does he call? He texts Gordon Sondland, the ambassador to the EU. So he texts him and expresses his concern, to which Sondland replied, quote, call me. So then, according to Taylor's testimony, Sondland lied about what he told Congress about that phone call. Taylor said that Sondland told him that President Trump, quote, wants President Zelensky to state publicly that Ukraine will investigate Burisma and alleged Ukrainian interference in the 2016 U.S. election, end quote. Now he goes even further. He said, Ambassador Sondland also told me that he now recognized that he had made a mistake by earlier telling the Ukrainian officials to whom he spoke with that a White House meeting with President Zelensky was dependent on a public announcement of investigations. In fact, Ambassador Sondland said everything was dependent on such an announcement, including security assistance. He said that President Trump wanted President Zelensky, quote, in a public box, end quote, by making a public statement about ordering such investigations.
That's interesting, because before Bill Taylor even gave his testimony as a witness, we floated that.
Yes, we did.
We floated the idea of Donald Trump just wanting it to be a spectacle, an announcement, not really wanting an actual investigation, because that's not what it was really about. It was about the announcement.
Yeah.
So-and-so is under investigation, and this is connected to
Joe
Biden.
It was to damage Joe Biden's
Public.
or his election campaign, his chances at obtaining the Democratic nomination, or maybe Not just that, but his chances of beating Trump in the general election.
You know what? You know what's so whack about that though? He wasn't gonna beat Trump. He probably wasn't even gonna win the Democratic nomination. So all this was done for no reason. Just like the obstruction shit.
Yeah.
If you just let it play out,
Yeah.
it would have had the same result.
Yeah, but with no obstruction.
But no
of justice, with
obstruction
the
of
Mueller
justice.
investigation.
Yeah, the Mueller investigation. So this is another case where I guess he has a temperament to be antagonistic and I guess go after his political opponents regardless.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
So
Even if it only harms himself.
only if it even harms himself. That's how you know it's pathological. Like, doesn't look like Bill Biden. Doesn't look like Joe Biden is going to win the Democratic nomination. So he abused his power. He abused his executive power for nothing.
And again, this was, like Mike said, it doesn't make sense that this would be to actually launch an official investigation because this was old news. Hunter Biden had been employed in that company since 2014. He got there after the actual investigation was started into that company. Okay, so everybody had already known about this. This wasn't being talked about anymore. So the only thing that this was really about was damaging Joe Biden. If there was something that was illegal that was being done, I'm pretty certain that it would have already been announced because the Ukrainians had already done an investigation. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, they didn't say that they did anything illegal whatsoever. So there's nothing to suggest that they have anything on them whatsoever, that another investigation would gather any information that suggests that they did anything illegal. So this was only for show. This was only for optics to make it seem as though Joe Biden was facing some charges in another country. His son was facing charges in another country. There was an investigation. And how could this guy become the next president of the United States? That's what it was about.
And I think it's also about trying to make Ukraine look bad, because then that would kind of give rise to that conspiracy theory. Yes. So he was most likely, once Zelensky made this announcement, he's probably going to screw Zelensky too. Because then Trump could say, you see there, corruption in Ukraine. Joe Biden is responsible, Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, which would give kind of this, it'll be a validating moment for not just Donald Trump, it'll be a validating moment for Rudy Giuliani, because he's been the one pushing this conspiracy theory, right? And Ukraine is the country where his own campaign manager was doing some work under the table.
That's right.
Doing work under the table for the former president that was just convicted of treason.
That's right. All right. So following this conversation, or actually during this conversation that Ambassador Taylor is having with Ambassador Sondland, of course, Ambassador Taylor is knowing that this is wrong. He's getting the feeling like this is so wrong. We cannot do this. So he's urging Ambassador Sondland to push back on President Trump's demand that this investigation be started, or at least announced, because this is very inappropriate. Shouldn't do it. So he's insisting that Sondland push back on President Trump's demand. Sondland says that he will try. Okay. So Taylor mentions the September 7th phone conversation between Sondland and President Trump. And so this is the same conversation that Sondland did talk about during his testimony, and we did cover. And that was the conversation that he said that he asked President Trump if there was a quid pro quo. And Trump very angrily stated that, and I think multiple times stated that there was no quid pro quo. So, Taylor mentions that he spoke with Tim Morrison again, who again is the National Security Council aide. So he spoke with him. I believe it was on that same day of the phone conversation on September 7th. And Tim Morrison described that conversation between Trump and Sondland. So according to that conversation, Taylor said President Trump told Sondland there was no quid pro quo. So again, that's backing up what Sondland says. But that he was still insisting that, quote, President Zelensky go to a microphone and say he is opening investigations of Biden and 2016 election interference, and that President Zelensky should want to do this himself. End quote. What does that sound like? Because
He wants that just sounds like Trump wants Zelensky to do him a big, huge favor. A big, not just a big, huge favor, but like something that Trump would do himself.
Yeah.
Like he would do himself like over here.
But it sounds as though Trump wants the onus to be on President Zelensky, though. He's like, hey, President Zelensky should want to do this himself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like taking him out of it. Hey,
like,
it's not me.
It's not my
forcing you.
request.
No,
because
no.
guess what? See, Trump knows. He's both dumb and smart.
Yes.
He's dumb and pathological in how he goes after people, which ends up always coming back to him.
Yeah.
But he's smart in that he knows he can't let everyone know that it was his idea because it looks bad.
And he can't say things explicitly.
And he can't say explicitly. So only a guilty person would do that.
Of course.
Only a guilty person would do that. Only a guilty person would kind of recuse themselves from a situation that they wanted. Like, hey,
It's not my hands.
it's not my hand.
This is you. This is your decision, but it should be your decision.
So what Trump is actually saying in the situation, he's kind of like letting the cat out of the bag. He's saying that I know this is wrong. This can't be on me. It can't look like this. Again, if Trump thinks he's doing the right thing and he's not doing anything wrong, he wouldn't have to go about it like this.
No.
Again, this contradicts his entire narrative that he created, that the aid was based on going after corruption.
Right.
Then, because he has been at the forefront of this the whole time.
Yep. Again, he's trying to create some distance between what's going on and himself. Like he put all of this into motion, and now that I guess by now, this security aid is being withheld, and it's been withheld for some time now. I would imagine that if it wasn't explicitly told to the Ukrainians or President Zelensky, that they have a feeling what's up, because again, it's being withheld. There's been talk of the investigations. There's even been talk about the language that President Zelensky should use when he's talking to President Trump in that whatever conversation that they're due to have someday that President Trump is, just delaying. I think it's Sondland. Taylor said that Sondland gave him kind of words to use, saying that he will leave no stone unturned, stuff like that, to kind of get into the good graces of Donald Trump. Yes, I will do what you ask. I will announce these investigations.
I think Sondland is going to be summoned again.
Or I think he will be resummoned. I think he's going to have to provide more testimony. So, okay. So the following day, after he learns about this phone conversation between President Trump and Gordon Sondland, he learned that President Zelensky had agreed to do a CNN interview in which he planned on announcing the investigations. So that was September 8th, I believe. So then September 9th was when the text message between the three of these players, Volker, Sondland, and Taylor, that's when that text message about, I can put it up right here, in which Ambassador Taylor said, as I said on the phone, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign. Now, we covered this a few weeks ago, but we didn't have the backdrop. We didn't have the full story. We didn't know what preceded all this information. So now it makes a lot more sense than just that one statement. And again, what did Sondland respond with? Bill, I believe you are incorrect about President Trump's intentions. And he tried to tell him that, no, the president has been crystal clear. No quid pro quo, this and that. That's cover your ass mode. That's not anything but cover your ass mode. Bill Taylor, we didn't even know the extent to which Bill Taylor was a player in all of this. Had no idea, hadn't heard the name Bill Taylor before. I honestly never had. I didn't know that he had firsthand knowledge of what was going on. But now that we see that he did, and that he clearly could understand, he would understand that there was definitely inappropriate behavior, and there was a quid pro quo. There was a withholding of the aid for a political purpose, for a personal political purpose. Now it makes more sense. It resonates a little bit more what he was saying.
It looks like Bill Taylor is, I think it's safe to say he was the biggest piece to this puzzle.
I think he was the big, and not again. Sondland's gonna have to testify again, but I don't believe Sondland was being completely truthful in what he was saying.
Of course not.
No,
Of course not.
because he wanted to cover his own ass. Because if
looks like he is.
if Bill Taylor's if what Bill Taylor is saying is true,
Sondland
then
is the ringleader.
Yes, and Sondland in his testimony he was saying that, hey, if I knew that something was going on, there's no way I would have been a part of this. That's what he said in his testimony.
But Bill Taylor
Puts him right in the middle
but
of it.
not puts him right in the middle of it. He goes about it in a way. At each step he was like, "Hey, this is when I sensed something was odd."
Right.
And he goes through everything, Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if he's going through each stage of this, as it's breaking down, as this whole saga is going forth, if he senses something wrong, do you think something's wrong? And he's the ambassador. He's the ambassador to the Ukraine.
Yeah, I would lean that he knows what's going on.
Also, I believe he went to John Bolton too.
Yes.
He went to John Bolton, and who was the national security advisor at the time, and told him to write a cable to Secretary Pompeo, which John Bolton apparently did. Now, what happened to that cable? John Bolton is, again, another mysterious departure.
Yeah, he's not there anymore. He's no longer
Another
the
mysterious departure.
national security advisor. Again, he was one of those guys that he was with, him and the secretaries for the State Department, the Department of Defense, and the CIA. They were trying to get a meeting. This was included John Bolton. They were trying to get a meeting with Trump to convince him to release the aid. So John Bolton did know that something was awry, something was going on.
Remember, I think we kind of floated that too. We kind of floated the idea that John Bolton knew something.
Yeah. Because it just seemed weird that all of a sudden he was no longer going to be the national security advisor when Trump made his own selection of him. It just didn't seem right. So going forward, September 11th, which was 2 days after that text exchange between the three, Taylor learned that the hold on the security assistance had been lifted. And so it was going to be routed to Ukraine. So, of course, he was thrilled that this security assistance was going to be routed to Ukraine. Again, this is a guy that is very interested in the good relationship, the strong relationship, and the foundation of Ukraine.
Protecting Ukraine from Russian aggression.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So he's interested in that. So he is thrilled that this money is going to get to them. So right away, he personally conveyed that news to President Zelensky that, hey, just want to reassure you that this money is on the way. It's been released. You're going to get that aid as soon as possible. So the reason for that, I think, was probably two-pronged, because one, it was to just say, hey, that with that hold on it, hey, that's no longer you're going to get the security assistance. But two, he wanted to be sure to stop the CNN interview that President Zelensky had already agreed to, in which that CNN interview, he was going to announce these investigations publicly. So Ambassador Taylor, again, he wanted to stop this.
So he's working behind the scenes to kind of passively kind of block any of this back channel.
Right.
I guess the work that was done through this back channel.
Right.
From getting done.
Because there's no reason to anymore, because the aid has been released. Like, hey, Zelensky, I know you're probably uncomfortable with what's going on. There's no reason for you to do it anymore. The aid has been released. Don't do it, please.
And it's just like he was. I wouldn't say that Taylor was trying to protect Trump, but it seemed like he was trying to protect the administration.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, because this is going to be bad. Mm-hmm. If it actually gets past this point, it's probably going to be worse. So I'm going to try to head this off before it pops off, before it gains steam, and Zelensky actually makes this announcement.
Yeah.
So, and I guarantee Bill Taylor was looking out for the interest of Ukraine too, Zelensky.
Yes.
Because it's probably going to look bad on Zelensky as well.
Because you're getting into a bribe.
You're getting into a bribe. You're getting into a bribe, and a bribe that most likely won't go your way.
Yeah.
because Donald Trump is gonna double cross you.
And not just look, he's protecting everybody by engaging in these type of actions, because not only is he's protecting the administration, he's protecting the reputation of the United States as well. Because if this is going on, then there could be other countries that's like, oh, hold up, the United States is for sale. Hey, I got something to offer you. Hey, I can do this for you. What you gonna do for us? I got something to offer you. And what about? Because if this is able to be done, this is a political opponent of President Trump. Maybe there's some other political enemies of President Trump in other countries
that are not elected officials.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It would go beyond that.
Because these countries spy on them, get some information on them for a price. This
again, this goes way beyond representatives.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Not like Joe Biden. It goes way beyond, because if you can get another country to kind of put a focus on maybe like a journalist or somebody who works on like a news network, or somebody who is a part of a special interest group, a human rights group, like anything, just name it.
So Sondland, not Sondland, but Taylor, he has no firsthand knowledge of what ultimately got the aid released, and everybody, and it's up for speculation at this point. I mean, we don't have any official word of what did it, but I mean, I guess you could speculate that maybe this unofficial channel, this irregular channel, was just doing too much, and maybe there was too much of that foundation. There was too much evidence that was out there that proved what was going on. And it was going on too long. I guess the investigations hadn't been announced to that point yet.
Yeah,
and nobody knew why the aid was being held.
The longer you draw it out, the worse it looks.
Exactly. And these secretaries of these departments are trying to get a meeting with Trump. And in that meeting, what is Trump going to say? What is going to be his defense to withholding the aid?
It's going to be a train wreck. It's going to be a train wreck. This is why you don't have a meeting with Trump, because guess what's going to happen during those meetings? It's going to be reporters are going to be there.
Yeah,
it's going to be public.
So really, I mean that is the, I mean that's the heart. And I know that was long, but that's the heart of Ambassador Taylor's opening statement. Now, again, this was closed door testimony. We don't know how he responded to questions. We don't know if there was other stuff that was unearthed.
So
don't know.
This is what, 16 pages?
Yeah.
15, 16 pages.
Yeah.
So think about what was not released.
Oh my gosh, man. What did you say about what was going to aid Donald Trump in his reelection? It was going to be something. He had to do something, right? Had to be one big thing, right?
Yeah. Like he had to it would have to be like extravagant.
Yes.
It would have to be something that like all Americans would have to admit, like, damn, he did something.
He did. And you thought it was going to be...
I thought it was going to be like healthcare.
Yes. You thought it was going to be healthcare.
I thought it was going to be healthcare. Then we had to report that what did he say? That was going to be, I'm going to give you healthcare after I get elected.
Yeah. Right after the election, that's when we're going to do healthcare.
I was like, damn, that theory of mine.
But I think what this proves is that this was his trump card. This is what he wanted to do. This is how he gets his reelection. This was his idea. Hey, you know what? I can use these back channel kind of irregular kind of agenda, stuff like this. I can use my personal attorney Giuliani to engage and be the point man.
Yeah,
and I can try to get dirt or not. No, I can't. No, because it's
two
not
parts.
about getting
Remember,
dirt.
it's two parts.
Not about getting the dirt. It's about just I guess throwing it out there. Throwing it out there for the people to see or to make them believe that there is dirt to be found. Just announce the investigation, and that will limit the prospects of Joe Biden's campaign.
And probably as a consequence limit Democrats as well.
Yes.
Because he would not just keep it on Joe Biden. He was like, this is an example of the corruption that has taken over that whole party. If you can't trust Joe Biden, you can't trust any of them. It wasn't just going to stay with Joe Biden. Remember, it was two parts though. It was one part of it was Joe Biden. The other part was the trying to, I guess, clear Donald Trump.
Yes.
and the people surrounding him from what happened in Ukraine. The illegal activities that
Yes.
members of his campaign were involved in.
Trying to get the DNC
Trying
server.
to get, so clearing Trump. So that was the second part of it. So Trump was probably going to use that and say, see,
Right.
this was all just a hoax.
This
I
was
have
his
proof.
reelection strategy. This is what and see, I doubt it would have worked because, again, it didn't work. Before we even knew anything, it didn't work, right? It didn't work because they released the aid before Zelensky was ever to go on CNN and announce these investigations. So it didn't work.
So it fell through, but
It fell through,
but he's still having to answer for it.
Because there was a whistleblower that he didn't count on. He didn't count on somebody blowing a whistle.
You know what else he didn't count on? He didn't count on Bill Taylor.
No, he didn't.
Because I guarantee you, Pompeo was like, yo, we need a moral buffer in this position.
Yeah.
We need a stand-up guy in this position. So Bill Taylor was supposed to be that stand-up guy that didn't question anything. He's supposed to be that, I guess, that integrity buffer. You see, we got this guy of integrity as an ambassador. He's just supposed to be like who you hoist up as to be the honest guy while all the other criminals do what they do. And you can just point to him and say, see, he's a stand-up guy. Look at his credentials. Look at his record. But they did not count on Bill Taylor actually having integrity. They didn't count on that integrity actually playing out and manifesting in this way.
If he had lied about it, then we still would be at the same place.
Or if he would just kept his mouth shut.
Yeah.
Because the whole time it's not like he's coming in on the back end of all this. Like of this
he still would have had to testify.
He would have had to testify, but like I think it's important to mention, like, this is something he had been holding on to and documenting the entire time. This is not something he's like, oh, damn, looks like this stuff is popping off. Let me remember what happened. Let me remember what happened. Yeah, he took notes about this. So he's not coming in like after this whole Trump Zelensky Ukrainian thing popped off and going in retrospect here.
No.
This is based on,
Because and why is he compiling this? Because he knows something wrong is happening. That's why he's uncomfortable with what's going on. That's why he's uncomfortable with this second irregular channel.
What is it? Irregular informal channel.
Irregular informal channel. He knows something. And again, he did not understand that the aid was connected with this inappropriate request until much later. And then when he had actually pieced that together, it was like, oh my gosh. And you remember Ron Johnson. Remember he winced? Remember he said he winced with the suggestion that it was connected to that aid? Everybody knows that it's a bad look.
The fact that he took so many notes shows how diligent he wanted to be about documenting what he saw and what he had a problem with.
Because he knew that, I think it's probable that he suspected that this was going to rear its ugly head.
Again, there's just so much about this.
And he wanted to be ready for it.
Yeah, there's so much about this whole situation that doesn't make sense. And if there was some like legitimate cause for investigating corruption, then I'm pretty sure Trump would have had his own State Department behind him, especially, let's say, like the FBI, who he appoints the head of. He appoints the director, Christopher Wray.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, his CIA would have been, glad to get involved.
Yeah. But he didn't want an
Of course, he
official
didn't want this.
involved.
I'm sorry. He didn't want an official channel.
Because this was not for official U.S. business.
This was official Trump business.
Official Trump business.